Hi everyone, this is Tanya, and today I'm going to be sharing an overview of Altenew's new mixed media inks and their properties and fun ways to use them. So today I'm going to be talking about the new mixed media inks and their properties and fun ways that you can use them. As you can see, there are 8 colors, which are from the existing color families. And here you can see I'm just showing you what the ink pad looks like. It's made of a firm foam. As you can see, it's quite squishy and very full of ink. It's very juicy, and you can see that they look nice and crisp on white cardstock. You can see a closer look at all the swatches I made on the Altenew blog, and here you can see that you can even stamp them on a black cardstock. So you have to build up several layers, but it is possible to get quite an opaque effect. So the inks are pigment based, which means that the ink stays on the surface of the paper or that you use. So you can see that I'm using the palest pink, and I have stamped it once, but when I stamp it twice, you can see that it looks a lot more brighter. And the trick is that if you keep building up layers, you can get an even more vibrant color of the ink on the stamp set. And if you use the ink pad directly on your surface, you will get a lot more ink on your surface, which means that it will be more vibrant. I've also had a play and a test and realized that if you dry in between layers and then keep building up the color, then you can get even more vibrant effects. And there you can see I did quite a few layers on my swatch, and they actually turn up really well. I was quite pleased about that, because I like creating projects on darker cardstocks, and I'm always on the lookout for an ink that I can use on dark cardstock. So here you can see I'm using the ink pad directly on to my black cardstock through the stencil, and you can even use your ink blending tools to blend the colors together. They're very creamy, they're very smooth, and because they take longer to dry, it means that you can get some beautifully blended backgrounds like ombre effects, and you can get 2 different colors to blend in together. This is just to show you I'm using the same color ink. This is Coral Berry, and I have, as you saw, I did the top half in with the blending tool, and you can see that the colors look really soft and lovely, and the bottom half was quite vibrant, and the ink was wet there. So because the ink stays wet for longer compared to dye inks, which dry really quickly, you can do some heat embossing on it as well. So I had a lot of ink left over on that stencil, and I am not one for wasting ink. So I decided to create another cardstock panel using all the leftover ink that was on my brush and on the stencil itself. So I was able to push the ink through the stencil I'm using on the plus side onto the cardstock panel, and because this ink is stays wet, as I mentioned before, I can do some heat embossing on it. So I'm using some clear embossing powder, and I sprinkled it over 1/2 of the panel, and over the rest I'm sprinkling some antique gold embossing powder. Antique gold is an opaque embossing powder, but when you emboss with opaque colors over another ink, you will get hints of that color underneath come up, and it actually looks quite pretty. and I'll put in a picture of what it looks like close up as well. Now this is a mixed media ink, which means that it can be used on a variety of surfaces. You can use it on porous as well as non-porous surfaces. Here I'm using the Geometric Element Stamp Set and using a stamp to stamp on a piece of wood. You can also stamp on fabric, and once you heat set it with your heat tool or an iron, it is machine washable as well. So here I am using a brayer to create some distressed blended effects on a piece of cardstock. Now, if you wanted like a super smooth blend, I would suggest using a rubber brayer rather than a hard brayer that I'm using here. Because I'm using the hard brayer, the application of the ink will be a little more uneven, but that was the effect that I was looking for. If you like, I can make another video showing how you can get super smooth blended backgrounds using a soft rubber brayer. So I am using the brayer to apply 3 of the green inks from the mixed media sets, and that last color Evergreen is just absolutely gorgeous. I love it. It could be easily used for a spring project. I can see myself using it for a Christmas project as well. And I'm going over the entire page. I'm creating an art journal page here with the lightest color again, and just to get the whole thing to blend together, because I made the mistake of not blending out one of the lines, so I got a harsh line, but I was able to knock that back by going over it with one more layer. So now I am using the Geometric Elements stamp set. I absolutely adore this stamp set. I am a big sucker for anything geometric, and pattern building is something that I absolutely love. So here I'm just showing you, I made a mistake here, but I left it in just to show you guys how you can fix things. So the ink pad, as I mentioned before, is made of a very firm foam compared to a dye ink. Dye inks are usually made of felt. Altenew's inks are made of felt, and you might need to adjust the pressure of how much you press your ink pad onto your stamp. Sometimes I'm really heavy-handed, so I over inked that first stamp as you saw, but because the ink was still dry, I was able to lift some of it up and blend it out before it dried completely. So I'm using the Geometric Element Stamp Set to create a radial style design. In the center, I made a flower. If you want, you can just do not a flowers, a star shape. You could do star shapes all over the page, just clusters of them. I mean, the pattern building possibilities of this stamp set are endless. You could use the same stamp over and over again to get like a repeat pattern. I find pattern building like this really, really relaxing for myself. So here's another thing I wanted to try. Pigment ink behaves in a different way to dye ink, and it is of a slightly heavier consistency compared to dye inks. So I just wanted to see what would happen if I did some smooshing with it. So what I've done is I pressed down the ink pad directly onto my mat first, and then sprayed it liberally with water. You might need to use a lot more water than with pigment inks as compared to dye inks, because they are slightly thicker. And I sprayed a little bit of iridescent medium in there as well. So I was drying in between layers to build up the color, and while on the final layer, while the ink was still wet, I used my stencil to lift some of the color through it with a kitchen towel. And after I was done, I die cut that piece of watercolor paper. I'm using Altenew's watercolor paper here. And I cut out these beautiful butterflies from the Mariposa Mix and Match set. And I cut out the word fabulous as well from Script Words Die 2. And I am starting to assemble everything. And the B is from the Fine Alphabet Die Set, which I love using, as the words are, the letters are just the right size and they don't take up too much space. So I've arranged the butterflies down with some clear drying glue, and I'm sticking down my word fabulous as well. And because the pigment inks, when they dry permanently, I don't have to worry too much about the glue smudging the ink underneath, which is sometimes a concern with dye-based inks and sprays. So uh, a lot of people requested that they wanted to see some of my art journal pages from that I've made for Altenew since I joined the design team. This was a flip through, just a quick flip through of the art journal pages that I made. This is just a small, very inexpensive scrapbook album I found at a dollar store. And here you go. Here's a closer look at my projects. If you have any questions, please leave me a comment on the blog or in the comment section on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching. Take care and have a great day. Thanks. Bye.
Hello crafters, I hope you enjoyed that video. If you want to see more, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss anything. Thanks for watching!